Honorable Men Discord, Crawford versus Canelo. Let's talk about it.
How you see yourself is how you perceived. I see a man strong, gifted, head strapping, never down on his knees, begging. Gotta make a way, even in my darkest hour. Say the odds against you was new. I would never cower.
So as always, welcome back to another episode. If you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And by all means, on this particular topic and all the topics, express your opinion in the comment section. So let's get straight to it. On Saturday was the long anticipated fight between Canelo Alvarez and Terrance Crawford. Or should I say Terrance Bud Crawford. And it was a Netflix event and it was star-studded. I noticed I saw Jason Statham, I believe his name is, in the front row along with Mark Wahlberg. And I almost didn't make it to see the fight. I almost couldn't keep my eyes open. I had a long day and I tried to watch some of the pre-fights, but then I was completely exhausted and I set my alarm. And when I opened my eyes, the first round had already started. So immediately I got a second win because I've been waiting for this fight forever. And I thought it was a good fight. And I like the fact that both fighters just showed excellence on all cylinders. Both great defense. Both showed intelligence, ring intelligence. But one thing that stood out was I felt as though Bud went into this fight telling himself, listen, I don't have the power that Canelo has. So let me move around and tire him. And ever so often, I'm going to stand toe-to-toe with him, slug it out, let him know that I can match his energy, and then keep moving around. And that game plan worked because I feel like almost like similar to the Spence fight, not quite like the Spence fight, but I noticed as the rounds continued, it seemed as though Canelo was starting to get fatigued. He was getting a little fatigued. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments, but it seemed like he was getting a little fatigued. So much so to the point where if for whatever reason, let's just say there was 15 rounds, you would have continued to see Canelo show signs of fatigue. He was a little winded because throwing all those powerful blows and not connecting and also trying to keep up with Crawford is a task. So that's what you saw on display. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit worried because I thought maybe Crawford may have not done enough to win the fight. And that's not to say that I didn't watch the fight. Clearly I saw that throughout the rounds, Crawford was connecting more than Canelo. But I was just worried based on Canelo's name and how much of a big name he has for boxing. I was worried that Crawford would get snubbed. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if anyone else felt like that, but it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't the type of fight that was undeniable. Like the Spence fight. The Spence fight, he swept the floor. He swept the ring with Spence. So much so that I think it's safe to say no one thought that there should be a rematch. This fight, he worked the ring, and by he I mean Crawford. Crawford worked the ring. He connected. He landed more than Canelo. But because Canelo at no point staggered, I think he may have staggered a little bit towards the end, a little bit. But he didn't stagger. He never dropped. I was worried they were going to snub Crawford. But I was pleasantly surprised at the end, like many of you all. Maybe some of you weren't surprised, and maybe some of you might say, what fight were you watching? Because it was a clear win. Although, I believe Crawford was winning each round, or most of the rounds, if anything. I was worried they would snub Crawford because he's not a bigger name than Canelo. But with that being said, for those of us that saw the outcome, hopefully those of you that didn't see the fight already know the outcome by now. So this is not a spoiler. Hopefully it's not a spoiler on Monday. You know, but The outcome was exactly what I thought it should be, and I was happy for him. But one thing I also have to add about the fight was the post-fight commentary from both of them was class personified. Class personified, I mean, from both of them. Crawford's respect for Canelo, Canelo's respect for Crawford, class act. Both of them, class act. You couldn't ask for more class shown, because we all know of fighters that when they lose, because of their ego, they rush out of the ring. We know fighters that because they lose during the post-conference or during the immediate, interview after the fight, they come up with excuses. Canelo showed no excuses. He gave no excuses. And it was just class. It was class. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I honestly am going to go back and watch the fight several more times to really analyze it further. But it was a good fight. It was a good fight. And fights like that, honestly, I watch it 10 plus times because I study footwork. I study the way the jabs are thrown. It's a science. It's a sweet science, like some might say. It's a sweet science that I really appreciate. And when you're watching two of the greatest do it, it has value. Now, another thing I want to say about this fight was maybe it's just me, but it seems as though both of them seem like they're good with where their careers are and they're ready to hang it up. Because when Crawford was asked whether or not, he'd be willing to, who's next, he went to the typical line of, I got to talk it over with my team. And granted, he just won a major fight, one of the biggest fights, if not the biggest fight of his career. That answer and the way he answered it, it didn't seem as though he's someone who's possibly looking to fight someone else. And truth be told, who else would he fight? And I'd like to hear your opinion in the comment. Who else would he fight? And are you thinking he should drop weight and fight Tank Davis? Tank Davis barely wants to fight now. Tank Davis could care less about boxing. He verbalized it before he fought Roach, and now we're seeing it transpire now with him not giving Roach a second fight, and now he's looking to fight Jake Paul. So Tank Davis, if any of you throwing Tank Davis names out there as a possible option to maybe the next one Crawford should fight, no. And to be honest with you, I could be wrong. If you know names worthy to fight Crawford, let me know. But after beating Canelo, who else would you fight? Because at this point, Crawford would be giving anyone after Canelo, he'd be doing them a favor. And not to say that's a bad thing, because Canelo did him a favor by taking the challenge. Obviously, the money, it was the motivation. But who would you want to see after Canelo? And as for Canelo's concerned, I think Canelo said it best. His legacy is solidified. I don't think Canelo needs to fight again. Now, if Canelo down the road, a few months out, says, you know what, let's run it back, I'm all for it. I'm all for it, because although Crawford won and he put on a great clinic, I think it could only get better, to be honest with you. If you disagree with me, let me know. I think it can only get better. I say run it back, let the two get in the ring and square off for a second time. I think it would be great, especially now with them having already shared the ring together. I can only imagine what else Crawford could bring to the table, what else Canelo could bring to the table. Maybe Canelo makes some adjustments, right? So that's a possibility. Maybe Canelo makes some adjustments and it's a totally different fight. I don't put anything past either one of the fighters, because they're just great in their craft. They're not the average fighter, which is why a part two, I can't say a part two would be the same way. Will a part two have the same outcome? Possibly. Possibly Crawford comes out on top again, but Canelo's intelligent fighter. He's a strong puncher. And it's possible that he makes adjustments. It's possible. You know, I would never deny that Canelo can make an adjustment. You know, he earned that. At least, you know, if you don't believe he can make an adjustment, then you're cutting him short. But wow, great fight, great fight. Are any of you disappointed with the results of the fight? Is there anything you wanted to see more of? You know, I know some people might say, oh, I was expecting a slugfest. Maybe there's some of you watching this that say, you know, I think Crawford should have stayed more in the ring, in the center, rather than move around. But for those people that wanted more of a slugfest and wanted them to just stay in the middle of the ring, understand that boxing is about who tags who the most. To just simplify it, it's who tags who the most, because they're keeping score of who tags who. Right? It's not about just standing in the middle and slugging it out and just throwing wild punches that not all the punches are connecting. Which brings me to that one of the pre-fights, and I can't think of the gentleman off top, but one of the fighters was from Canada. I did not like that fight, and one of my colleagues, I was talking about the fight, and he said he really enjoyed that fight, but I did not like that fight because that type of boxing doesn't promote a long career. And my colleague was like, well, that's what the fans want to see. And if that's the case, I can understand what the fans want to see. But when we're talking about a professional boxer and what it is you're supposed to be doing in that ring, you could still make a fight entertaining without standing in the middle of the ring and just slugging it out. Not to mention that style of fighting that Canadian boxer was doing. And again, I don't know his name off top, but that style of fighting, one, causes a lot of head injuries because you're just slugging it out. It's like, I look at it like it's sloppy. I really don't respect that style of fighting. It causes a lot of head injuries, which in turn will limit how long your professional career will be because you're taking too many headshots. So I don't agree with that style of fighting. Not to mention, it increases the headbutts. And I don't like that type of fighting where both boxers constantly are getting headbutted in the head, or they're constantly colliding, I should say, where both boxers are constantly colliding and causing, you know, lacerations and things like that are not from punches. I just don't like to see those type of fightings. It just looks clumsy. It doesn't look clean. What I did like though was, I want to say it's the first fight with Muhammad versus Crawford. Muhammad is a fighter that I'm going to pay close attention to. I'm going to look out for him. As soon as the bell rang and he went into the center of the ring, clean jabs. I loved his jabs. He looked like a soon-to-be champion. He's en route to be a champion if he stays focused. And I'm just going to call it now. You know, am I wrong? Only time will tell. But I like the way Muhammad boxes. I definitely like it. All his punches were clean. All his punches were clean, straight down the middle jabs. It's like he has it. You know, certain people have it. Certain people have to work towards getting it, and Muhammad has it. And he's only, I believe, Muhammad is only 21 because Crawford, the person he fought, Crawford, was 22, I believe, or it's the other way around. But I do remember their ages because I was wide awake for that fight. The fights after it, I started getting tired, and that's when I closed my eyes to get a quick nap to prepare for the Canelo Crawford fight. But what's your thoughts on the fight? Were you satisfied with it? Do you think it was a bust? Do you feel like Canelo was snubbed? Do you think it was a deserving prediction on the scorecard? Do you think either one of the fighters should continue fighting? And if you do think either one of the fighters should continue fighting, who should they fight? If you had the option of choosing a fight for them, who would you want to see them fight? But as far as I'm concerned, it's great for boxing. If both of them decide to retire, it would be a sad day in boxing. And honestly, I don't even know who I would watch, because the rest of the fighters in the boxing card, Shakur Stevenson, I haven't watched the full Shakur Stevenson fight, but I've heard that his fight isn't interesting to watch. They say he's boring, but I'd have to see some highlights and some fights on my own to make my own decision. But again, Tank Davis, we know he's pretty much out of here. He's not going to be fighting anymore unless there's a huge bag. Maybe it'll entice him to come back and fight. But I think for Davis, after the Jake Paul fight, I wouldn't be surprised if he just stops altogether, unless he just continues to partner up with Jake Paul and fight random people for the sake of fighting in exhibitions. I really don't know what's going on with that, but I don't know. Maybe I'm missing a name. If anyone knows a name in boxing I should keep an eye on, let me know. But I was pleased with the fight at the end of the day, and I'm going to make it my business sometime this week to watch the fight again, and then the weeks to follow, try to get it, a few more views of the fight to really overanalyze the fight. But that's all I have on this episode. Again, I appreciate, as always, everyone tuning in. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, tell a friend to tell a friend. I drop episodes daily, Eastern time at 5 p.m. As always, stay honorable, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.